On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about the brand new Panopticon album, And Again Into the Light.
It's very contemplative.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Cale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're talking about my first new Panopticon album as a Panopticon fan.
Nice.
I started listening to them in 2019.
Really? That recently?
Yeah, I started listening to them like around the time we did Autumn Eternal for the podcast. Like,
oh, wow.
Very, very shortly before we did that for the podcast.
I've discovered this. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's what it was. And so it's always a big thing for me when a band that I've gotten into recently puts out their first album since I've started, becoming a fan of theirs. So there's been a ton of like little releases betwixt the last album. What was the last album? We talked about it not too long ago. It's got a really long title.
It does have a long title.
And the Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness.
That's it.
Or just the Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness.
Probably.
There's a lot of words.
The Scars of Man.
The Scars of Man. How about that? Or Scars, if you really want to get, real short with it. If people know you're talking about Panopticon and you say Scars, people understand.
Sure.
If they know their Panopticon. Speaking of just Panopticon in general, we'll talk about the album later.
I'm excited about this news.
Coming back, something that we were excited to and probably going to go to before coronavirus hit. I have a phone somewhere.
I have it too right here.
But before COVID hit, we were going to go to the Decibel Magazine Beer and Metal Festival in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it is coming back. It's going to be September sometime. Let's see here. I have the image saved. September 25th through the 26th. And Austin Lunn, who is the guy behind Panopticon. It's a mostly solo project.
And the head brewer at Hammerheart Brewery.
Yes, he's the head brewer at Hammerheart. His beer is going to be there. Alongside Converge performing All of Jane Doe for the first time in the U.S.
Awesome.
Napalm Death is performing all of Harmony, Corruption, and Utopia Banished. Awesome. And Pig Destroyer is performing all of Prowler in the Yard.
Awesome.
Also, Municipal Waste is going to be there. And so is Blood Incantation.
We've talked about them on this program.
I think that's definitely I know all three of the headliners and I'm excited for those. But like outside of that, there's not a lot of bands. That's Blood Incantation.
That is Blood Incantation.
Their logo is completely illegible.
It looks like just a pile of sticks.
I had to look it up to see if that was indeed, because I was just like, that looks like a vaguely familiar bundle of sticks.
Yeah.
But it is indeed Blood Incantation. I think there was maybe one other band that I had heard of. Immolation is a death metal band.
Yes, they are. They've been around a while.
Yes. So I think if we go, if it works out, then I think that would be a pretty good time.
Just make sure
flights to Philadelphia will be in September.
One thing that I found in beer festivals, I will ruin it for myself if I don't start with an extremely strong beer
and taper off
off through the evening and then move on to like a light beer.
I see. Yeah, I've never done like festivals and drinking. I was 21 my last year at Warped Tour, which was not the last Warped Tour. It was the penultimate Warped Tour.
Sure.
I was 21 and had a couple of beers at that one. But also, like, I imagine, I don't know how, or like, it says the Fillmore, so I think that's probably an arena, maybe. I don't know if it's an outdoor venue or if it's going to be like an indoor arena festival sort of thing or what, because it's 2 days.
Right.
So it might be like a like an expo space. You know what I mean?
Right.
I could see an event like this taking place
The Fillmore
inside a big like
Philadelphia.
expo sort of venue.
Images.
But like Warped Tour, of course, was always outside in the blazing sun and the 95 degree, 200% humidity. Oh, yeah, it's a big indoor space, it seems like.
Yeah.
But Warped Tour was always just miserable because it's 95 degrees and like 5,000% humidity because it's Shakopee, Minnesota, which is deep in the swamps of Minnesota, basically. It's not actually swamps, but it sure fucking feels like it in the middle of July.
And there's probably a mosquito or two.
Not usually in my experience at Warped Tour, although often it was just a little bit windy. I don't remember ever having to really contend with the mosquitoes. I think perhaps the extreme noise maybe fended them off. But yeah, I don't really recall ever having to deal with mosquitoes at Warped Tour. It just wasn't a thing for whatever reason. It logically it should have been, considering where the event took place. But maybe it was just July might be a little bit past prime mosquito season in Minnesota.
All right,
but I don't know that for certain.
It's not here. I know.
Yeah,
I know. In July, if you headed down to anywhere, there's a small amount of standing water.
Yeah. It kind of depends on where you are. I can see in like Western North Dakota, you get into late July and it's just like everything's fucking bone dry.
Sure.
It's certainly going to be this year.
Yep.
Although we've had,
extreme drought.
We've had a decent amount of moisture in the last couple of days.
Right.
But yeah, 17% of the state is in the worst drought category possible at the moment.
We're in the same category as the desert Southwest.
Yes.
Yeah. Death Valley,
Arizona,
and Central North Dakota.
Extreme drought.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a dry one. You doing anything for Memorial Day weekend?
I didn't have any plans. It's a 3-day weekend. Oh, tomorrow I'm going to go watch one of my children graduate from high school.
Well, there you go.
That's going to be cool. The one that just had the baby.
Okay. All right.
So I went and I actually saw them this afternoon. And
nice.
Yeah.
Children get older.
I'm getting older too. You saw, yeah.
Real quick about that song.
Okay.
Just like hearing that song in inappropriate places is just like it's a special treat or a game. I think it's just like in a grocery store or something, and you hear that song. It's
Landslide
just like,
is playing.
Why are you trying to make me fucking cry? I'm in the grocery store. You don't play Landslide if you don't want people to cry in on your property. Like, come on.
I don't think the grocery store is playing in they pay for a service.
Yeah.
And it gets piped in.
It's just like Landslide needs a warning ahead of it of just like, hey, things are about to get heavy for a couple minutes here. Buckle up. But anyway, sorry.
No, I'm with you. And I've noticed half the time I'm in the store, it's not Landslide, but it's a Little River Band song. The Little River Band plays a lot in our grocery stores.
I don't know.
It's everything up their greatest hits seems to cycle through.
The last couple of times that I've been to Shields, things haven't been quite. I think it's been a bit more general, but for a while there, every time I went into Shields, it was like gospel rock.
Gospel rock?
It was like Christian rock.
Did you say gospel?
So
like you said gospel.
Gospel? Gospel. I don't like the hard P. I don't hey. But like gospel, that doesn't sound right to me. It's
gospel.
Gospel.
It's like the other day when I was trying to say police chief and I kept saying police chiefs. That's all.
Police chiefs.
Police chiefs.
I feel like that's supposed to be a softer P.
Gospel.
Like it's a stupid. English is dumb. It's probably not even really an English word. It's probably a loan word.
It's a derivative. Yeah. Most of what we speak in English nowadays is.
Yeah.
You saw my new car, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty swanky.
Nice.
Yeah.
What exactly is it?
2016 Ford Fusion.
That's
black.
Right. Black.
Yeah.
You pulled the Batman. Does it come in black? There you go.
So that's what I got. Yeah, it's a This is the fanciest car I've ever owned. My last car was in a luxury car, but it was a 2006 luxury car.
Yeah.
It still had like
all the luxuries of 2006.
I had a compartment to keeping your whiskey.
Well, I feel like a certain kind of luxury car today still has that. I feel like Bentleys probably come with a built-in cooler for your booze. Jaguars definitely do.
Sure.
If you believe the guys from Top Gear / the Grand Tour, is that there's a specific kind of person who owns a Jaguar. And they're a charming thief. That's apparently the demographic that owns Jaguars are all just roguish, charming rogues, apparently. But yeah, the new car, all that stuff.
Yeah, I got my teenagers now. I got a child's graduating, a teenager who's now on my cell phone plan. So I've now gained a car payment and doubled my cell phone plan. So in June, I'm going to be eating a lot of rocks and things.
There you go.
That's what my diet's going to be. Things.
Rocks are free.
Sure they are.
You can just pick them up.
Lots of minerals.
They don't tell you that rocks are free.
Yeah, rocks are free.
They had people. I wish somebody had told me that rocks are free. would have gotten so much more use out of all those rocks. Mm-hmm. Unless you're at the lake. It's not. There's certain places where you're not supposed to pick up rocks and take them places
because they're like fossils and stuff. And
yeah, there's some sandstone slabs that my parents definitely don't have that maybe are in slight violation of that rule. But
don't move the rocks.
Don't move the rocks.
Yeah,
I don't know why he's suddenly a guy from Milwaukee. Fuck off, okay, buddy? I'm from Milwaukee.
Go Packers.
Go Packers. I think it depends on how the wind is this weekend. I want to go to
It'll be in the 70s.
It'll be the temperature's going to be nice, but the wind may be uncooperative because we live in North Dakota.
Right. So if you can have, like 1 or 2 days a year, you get the conditions right. The temperature's right. The air is calm. The sun is out, but it's not brutal. Maybe 1 or 2 days a year.
Very rarely, yes.
Yeah.
I need like a good rain jacket. I think that's going to open up some opportunities for me as far as kayaking goes.
Sure.
If I get although there's certain parts of the summer as well where rain does not come without, massive amounts of lightning.
Right. And you don't really want to be on the lake during massive
Yeah, that's a bad idea. Yeah. This is like last summer, my dad and I went fishing and it was like pretty early in the morning and we were out there and just completely, as happens, completely without warning. That's a thunderstorm. Just completely out of nowhere, not in the forecast. There's a bunch of lightning over there, but it was down by like Underwood. So we were just like, it's fine. That's like 20 miles away, even though that's the distance that lightning can, advance out of a thunderstorm. We were just, it's fine. It's a fiberglass boat.
It's not conductive.
There's not a lot of metal in here. I think maybe it's an aluminum hull, actually.
That is one thing I actually do love. I love being in water, on water during a rainstorm. I love that.
Yes, it's a very calming sort of thing. Mm-hmm. That's I wrote something. I said last week I got Subnautica below zero.
Right,
and that's a pretty frequent event. Is that I don't know if it's actually rain or if it's like thunder snow or something or like hail or something. The weather might be weird, but like above on the surface, oftentimes things drop into the water. Basically, sure. like there's some rain-like event, and that's fairly calming noise and soothing noise to hear in comparison with all the horrific howls and shrieks of the nightmarish creatures that live in that godforsaken ocean.
Now, is this it's not DLC? This is actually a new game,
This is a standalone game.
Nice.
It's a sequel. I think it originally was meant to be like an expansion pack or something, but it just ended up being a sequel.
Nice.
That takes place in a polar region of that same planet, completely different character. Wow. Probably a number of years down the line from the original character, because the company that character worked for has set up all kinds of research outposts all over this planet.
Sure.
And everything like that. And you play as a woman who has shown up looking for clues as to what really happened to her sister. Her sister died on this planet.
Oh, no.
And Altera says that it was due to her own gross negligence. And Robin was like, nah, that doesn't sound like it.
She was never gross or negligent.
She was neither gross nor negligent. So Robin shows up and she's trying to figure things out as far as what actually happened to her sister.
Is it a survival game as well? I mean,
yeah, it's all the mechanics are exactly the same as the first game. It's just a new story and a new setting, and new creatures and all that. But everything else works exactly the same way. There's some new vehicles and technology.
But you're still dealing with bladderfish probably, right?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And those fuckers are never around when you need water. The big shortage is almost always copper. I can never find enough copper. I never seem to have lead when I need it.
Sure.
And the other big thing, I have no idea where to find fucking rubies at this point. I'm at the point where I need rubies for certain technology.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't explored enough of the map to know where to go to get rubies. Cause like at a certain point in the first game, you've got the prawn suit and whatnot, and you've got the big submarine. And it just became, I think I maybe mentioned this last week, it just became the strip mining game for me.
Sure.
Which is let's eke out every last bit of resources available on this map. And so you could go to like really deep, inaccessible areas in this deep diving suit with a big mineral drill on it and just fuck shit up. And right now I have the sea truck, which is there's a tiny little cab. That's like, it's smaller than, because the Sea Moth in the first game was basically like a sports car.
Sure.
That thing could zip around, whereas the Sea Truck is more like, a Ford Ranger. Versus like a Lamborghini.
Still kind of zippy, but not really.
Not really at all, no. And the thing with it, though, is that you can hook up several different modules to the back of it, and they dock on and extend. Basically, it turns it into like a lorry truck, essentially, or a box truck. I don't know why I went with the British, what the British would call it versus what the Americans would call it, because I'm an American. Anyway, it turns it into like a box truck, and there's a storage compartment, and then there's a fabricator compartment. You can also get a sleeper compartment and a.
Do you need to sleep in this game?
Aquarium one. You don't need to sleep. But you can. It can be useful if it's like dark out or something and you want it, you don't want to like waste flashlight batteries. But I think on the Sea Truck you can only hook up 2 compartments at a time, so you kind of have to figure out what you want.
A lot of
Sorry about your dick.
A lot of motorcycles.
It's a pretty nice day.
Yeah,
it's a decently nice day.
Need to get mine fixed.
You'll get there eventually.
Oh, you were there on the other side of this, but on Monday, I did a remote from the Battle of the Badges blood drive.
Yes.
And I'm talking to Teresa, who's the head lady at Vitalent there.
Yes.
Who's an old friend. She hired me for the first time in radio.
Yes, I've heard that.
And she, because there was a cornhole set. It was just in the hallway. It wasn't part of the.
Just someone set up a cornhole set.
It wasn't set up. It was just like it was.
Folded,
it was
just there.
Yeah, it was just there. It wasn't part of the whole thing. And I said, why don't we just set up cornhole? We just have that be part of it. One of the fun activities. It was from the Spot downtown.
Okay.
And she said, yeah, that'd be cool. Instead of using like bean bags, we could just use like the blood bags.
That sounds like Terry.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there would be frowns on that. She said, oh, it'd be cool. Could we call it blood hole? And I said, no, don't ever say that word again.
Maybe not.
Please.
Maybe not.
No.
Maybe not blood hole. It could be a band, though.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Maybe a band named Blood Hole.
Blood Hole. What's up? We're Blood Hole.
We haven't visited that list in a long time.
Yeah. Well, like, because we're not working in the office where that list lives.
Right. We don't
have 2 hours to sit and bullshit with each other. We will again soon, but like
next week.
Yeah.
As of Tuesday.
Did Jay actually say something to everybody else?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, because he talked to me this morning and he wasn't sure when he was going to do it. and then never told me when he officially decided on something.
June 1st, yeah. June 1st.
Okay. I didn't hear that. I heard vague notions of like, oh, maybe next week or maybe the week after. I don't know. And then I guess he decided and nobody told me.
I'm telling you now, man. Because he called me at like 3:30.
Okay.
So.
But brain. So yeah, that'll be nice being able to actually like sit and chat outside of this, where we just have to like, okay, what are the billion things that I thought of to say?
Yeah, I know. I mean, since the pandemic with this podcast, you people don't hear this, but we sit and talk for like 20 minutes beforehand.
And like a half hour afterwards, basically.
Yeah.
It'll be nice. I mean, on one hand, there will be other distractions. On the other hand, though, I can get away from my cat for a while.
Sure.
In the sense that it's nice not being stared at for several hours a day while I'm trying to do my job. Yes. It is. We're having a staring contest.
I can't. Now. My eyes get dry real fast.
Yeah, no, I can't. I was testing that out the other day because I was watching a Taskmaster clip where they had to keep their eyes open for as long as possible, and I was like, "How long could I do it?" If I'm not thinking about it, it can be a really fucking long time. Like there have been times where I've been playing video games and I feel like I haven't blinked in like 15 minutes and I just don't notice it. But if I'm thinking about it, I can last like 20 seconds maximum.
Speaking of maximum and video games, I'm worried about where my youngest child is going to, what their summer is going to be, what his summer is going to be like.
Oh, I suppose.
Because he will not take the headset off. And will not put the video game controller down.
Well,
and he doesn't do anything else.
That's when you force him to. That's when you go on a trip. You're like, we're going to Lake Metagoshi, and there's nothing you can do about it. We're just gonna go for the day and fuck around. I don't know. You'll have to figure that part out. But
I'm bored. Yeah. Now you know about the first 47 years of my life.
So this is the first. So after your most recent birthday, that's when you started not being bored.
Yeah, I don't have the attention span to be bored anymore.
I suppose. Does that? I feel like, I don't have the mental bandwidth to decode the thought that I'm trying to have. I feel like my own thoughts are like encrypted and I have to unravel them.
Sure.
Sometimes.
And they weren't encrypted by you.
No, somebody else got up in there and fucked my shit up. Some sort of brain hacker got in there and made my thoughts all jumbled.
Right.
And now I got to sift through them like a old timey prospector looking for gold. And turns out it's just it's not gold, but it's a chunk of iron ore. It's useful. It's not what you were looking for.
Hopefully it's copper one of these times.
Copper. Yeah. The Subnautica thing and also in real life.
Right.
Valuable.
Very valuable.
Speaking of valuable, let's talk about Panopticon.
Yeah.
What a valuable artist in the world.
Austin Lunn, yeah.
Austin Lunn is just he is a treasure.
I keep wanting to put a D at the end of his name. It's Lunn. It's not Lund.
Yes, it's two N's. Very, very Norwegian last name. But even though like he moved to a very Norwegian place in the country, but he's from Kentucky.
Right.
But
what is the ancestry of Kentucky primarily, I wonder?
I have no idea. I feel like there's a lot going on there, probably. I feel like it got like generally speaking, it probably got settled fairly early on. So probably a decent amount of English settlers and whatnot. You know, the first generations of people moving into the hills and whatnot. But like after that,
really only known one person from Kentucky. His last name was Metro.
I don't even. What is that? I have no idea.
He was missing his left thumb, and his nickname was a shortened version of his last name.
His nickname was Meat?
Yep.
I'm Meat. Aren't we all?
Or actually,
aren't we all just meat?
We are. We're just meat that ain't rotted yet.
We're just a computer pilot in a meat suit. We're a boring Terminator. Because the Terminator, he's got the metal endoskeleton,
sure,
and whatnot. We have just a shitty, it's bones instead of metal,
right?
And then the flesh gets put on top of it.
I feel like this is going to be Bloodhole's first album, Bones instead of metal.
Bones instead of metal. That's going to give people the wrong impression. It's like, what the fuck is Bones music?
I don't know.
We were talking about Panopticon.
We were.
So yeah, Austin Lunn, if you don't know who he is, if you don't know what Panopticon is, it's a solo, primarily anyway, solo black metal, or maybe just extreme metal at this point. That, like, black metal is an ever-present influence, and it's by far the most prevalent, but there's so many other influences that he throws in there. There's death metal, there's doom metal, there's of course bluegrass, which is the other big ingredient that has to be mentioned. But like there's so much going on in every Panopticon album, and I feel like album to album, kind of what he chooses to be an influence sort of changes.
Right.
Like, I think Autumn Eternal is maybe one of the most balanced albums he has as far as his influences go. I think Roads to the North has a lot of melodic death metal on it. There was obviously a lot of bluegrass on Scars of Man. And then this, I think there's a lot of doom on here. There's a lot of really gloomy, really moody, really sort of kind of sad and introspective type stuff in here.
There's a lot of him singing in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most on his metal albums that he's sung. Because this is like Scars of Man was kind of split, where like part 1 was all metal, part 2 was all bluegrass,
right,
and Americana and whatnot, where this kind of goes back to sort of Autumn Eternal, which is metal songs with breaks of acoustic stuff in them. Although it's a bit less bluegrass, there's not a ton of banjo or anything like that on this. It's more acoustic guitar, violin. I guess fiddle would be more appropriate.
Sure.
But some of it is more violin. There's some cello on here. There's a lot of the strings on this are gorgeous, and he didn't do the strings on this. I think he does play fiddle, but I'll go through all of the things that Austin Lunn plays on this album.
Okay.
Guitar, drums, bass, which includes 4, 8, and 12 string.
Bass.
What the fuck is a 12 string bass?
Ridiculous. That's what it is.
What is a 12 string bass? Keys, lap steel, pedal steel, banjo, square neck resonator, acoustic guitar and acoustic bass, vocals, screamed, growled, sung, choirs, mandolin, and sampling. Then a fellow named Charlie Anderson did most of the violins. A guy named Patrick Urban played the cello. His wife did the photography and art direction. There's also some guest vocalists on here for maybe the first time ever. We've got a guy named, he's German, so I assume it's Jan van Berlekom, who's from a German black metal band called Waldgeflüster, which I think means forest fire in German.
Yeah.
He's done a split. Austin has done a split album with those guys before. The song Hakon's song, which we talked about in like the Epics episode. All of his really long singles was from that split. And then also is Eric Mogridge, who performs as Aerial Ruin, which is an acoustic, sort of a dark kind of acoustic band. He also did the vocals on the last half hour of Mirror Reaper, which I immediately recognized him from, partially because I'm kind of back on a Mirror Reaper kick a little bit. I drove to Fargo last weekend to go to a wedding and put on Mirror Reaper, as is my habit often when I'm on long car rides.
Sure.
I also was listening to Four Phantoms, which I haven't listened to in a long time, which is the album preceding Mirror Reaper, and the last one with their drummer who passed away. And my goodness, that album is really good. And I think we should talk about it soon.
All right.
To give myself an excuse to listen to it more. But Eric Moggridge also did a album. They just did a collaborative acoustic album in 2019, I think, that I haven't I don't think I've given it its fair shake. I should maybe listen to it. But I like his singing. He has a very sort of kind of high pitched, sort of delicate style of singing that it's hard to really put it into words. It's not like the best singing in the world. Neither is Austin's.
Yeah,
but,
there's some of Austin's singing. It's like
it's not the. You're there
bad.
for the emotional content.
You are, yeah.
It's if you're looking for someone who's an amazingly talented singer, it's not Austin Lunn.
Yeah,
you're there for the emotional content and for the instrumentality and the feeling and everything. He's not even really, like, to be perfectly honest, he's not even really that good as a metal vocalist either. But part of the fun of black metal is you can just sort of put it low in the mix, and it works. And I think these are all things that I imagine Austin probably understands. But
he's well aware.
It's
That's why he's not making millions off of it. He has to have another job.
Yeah. But everything, I get the impression that he's a guy who really likes what he does.
Yeah, everything he does.
But this album, from what I understand anyway, is maybe he's not super satisfied with himself, because this is a meant to be basically an album about his struggles trying to live up to an ideal, I guess, and talking about that sort of thing. If you really pay attention and really try and listen to the lyrics on some of the stuff, it's very kind of this is a very introspective album. This is not particularly kind towards himself. On the song "The Embers at Dawn," one of the last vocal refrains is "Don't save me, I'll only bring you down." That's
we'll get to that in a moment, I'm sure, but that's my favorite song.
Same. Yeah. No, we can skip ahead to that. I adore that song. That's the song that Eric Moggridge does guest vocals on for the first part of that. And Eric Moggridge does lead vocals. Also, the thing about Eric Moggridge and Austin is they look like they could be brothers. They're both like burly blonde men with big beards and long hair, and they look like they could be brothers. But it's like if you saw the two of them perform together, it'd be like, okay, which one is the one with the banjo's probably Austin. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it's I adore that song. I really like that song. I started listening to this album last time I went down to my parents' house was when I found out that it came out. I opened up Spotify and I was like, new Panopticon. I was like, what the fuck?
Hell yes.
And apparently there was like the title track, not the title track, actually, the last track, which is No Hope.
Yeah.
KNOW.
Right. No, like understand hope.
That was released as like a single back in January, which completely slipped past me. Like I missed all of the marketing. I thought this got released as a surprise, which people sometimes do these days. No, there was marketing. There was a little bit of marketing, not a ton, because it's a one-man black metal band. There's not a ton of marketing opportunities here, but
right.
I completely missed out on all of that. And I was listening to it in my car and was just kind of gritting my teeth because, like, man, the mixing doesn't work on these speakers.
Oh,
but listening to it in headphones, it works so much better. This is, I will say, if you're going into this expecting like a hi-fi recording, that's not this. Like some of us, like I think Autumn Eternal in general sounds a lot better than this does. But I love the songwriting on this so much, and I think part of the production of it is, I have to imagine, intentional, because like Austin recorded it himself, but then the mixing was done by let's see who mixed it, a guy named Spencer Morris, and it was mastered by Colin Marston.
Oh, Colin Marston,
who's the bassist,
the brother of James Marston.
Yes, no, that's James Marsden. But no, Colin Marston is the bassist for Gorguts and the guitarist for a billion different things, notably Dysrhythmia and Behold the Octopus and
many other very confusing pieces of music.
Jesus, Colin Marston does, and he's also produced 8 billion different albums. He's a very, very busy man, generally speaking. But like the production on this is very kind of classic black metal style of like not super high fidelity. The rhythm guitar, for example, is, you listen to certain albums and you can hear every stroke.
But this is muddy.
You can differentiate every string in every chord of the rhythm guitar. It's just a big wall of sound. But I think it works. I think it works for what it is. I wish just because I'm me and I like my hi-fi stuff. Mm-hmm. I wish it was a bit better, production wise. But if that was everyone's vision, then I will bow to that. Because I am a Panopticon fan, and I'm here for whatever Austin does.
Last weekend, my youngest child turned 10, and so we had a house full of 10-year-old boys spending the night. So
that sounds like a nightmare.
Yes. They're all sweet
Not
kids.
quite.
But my 14-year-old comes out of the room, and I'm standing in the kitchen doing something, I don't remember what. They said to me, we have screeching boys, so can we go out and get a Monster Energy drink? And I said, I hear they sell them in Burlington. So
let's go on a drive to Burlington.
Yeah, which is what we did. We drove, and all the way there and all the way through, I for some reason I just wanted to listen to Dark Throne.
Okay.
And listening to Dark Throne, I'm going, they really seem like they're gone out of their way to not use the best equipment.
That's absolutely Fenris's deal. Yeah. Like, he's gone on record talking about, like, he despises compression specifically. Right. He hates that particular very common effect to be put on any piece of audio. He despises it. But yeah, Fenris is very much a old school black metal type of guy, and has not given up on that.
And you know what? It works.
It works. That's what people, if you're listening to a Dark Throne album, that's what to expect that.
Right.
Although I didn't listen to all the way out of their most recent full length, I think, but that was like kind of a weird, like sort of weirdly rock and roll type of record from what I listened to it, where it was like black metal, but rock and roll, which I was not expecting. Mm-hmm. A lot of people really like that album, but,
well, like you listen to like early Raven or
like first wave stuff.
It's very rock and roll.
Yes, it is absolutely very, very rock and roll. Mm-hmm. The Venom album that we listened to is 100% fits into that paradigm.
Yeah.
That just goes for any kind of metal from that era in the late 70s is still very rock
and roll. Yeah.
But it's this slaps. Yes, it slaps.
Yeah, of course it slaps.
Although we were talking about the doom metal aspect of it, like the very first full length song, Dead Loons.
Yeah.
That opens up with a couple, like it's, lots of strings, lots of, the violin and the cello.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, wonder.
Yeah. You say and I didn't realize this was a full length, like full Panopticon metal album, because you hear that opening track is acoustic and clean vocals.
The title track,
the title track. And then I got into the second track and was just like, oh, is this just another? Is he doing another acoustic album or something? And then boom, just like a massive slam comes out of nowhere and then gets you ready for proper full Panopticon mayhem, basically. Not literally mayhem,
right?
Although I'm sure they're an influence, but like,
of course,
if you're doing something vaguely black metal and mayhem isn't an influence, are you doing it right?
Are you really doing black metal?
Are you really doing? Even though I have my problems with mayhem, like it's unavoidable.
Sure.
It's just I think for all of the like the mix in the quality of the recordings for the guitars and is its own thing, but then like all of the acoustic stuff is it like to the detriment of the guitars, but to the benefit of the acoustic stuff. Sure. I think like all of the, the violins and the acoustic guitar and the banjos, all of that sounds amazing, especially when it's mixed in with the guitars as it is at certain points, right? The violins and the cello, it sounds really good, mixed in there. And all of that is higher quality, partially because, it's just, I think if you're in a good room, if you have a good room and decent equipment to start with, you just set up a microphone and make sure that it doesn't distort. And you've got a good recording of the, as long as the room is not shitty and you get the right amount of reverb that you want out of it and that sort of thing. But back to this. Yeah, we both talked about our favorite song, The Embers at Dawn. That's really great. Opens up as just... it sounds like it could be an Aerial Ruin song. Okay. And it also reminds me of that last half hour of Mirror Reaper. That's just the slow. It's just the Hammond organ, occasionally the higher end of the bass guitar there. Not much drumming to speak of, mostly because the drummer's playing the Hammond organ because there's two people in that band. But it reminded me of that just because of the vibe and that guy's voice. And also makes me think like I would love to see Panopticon on tour with Bell Witch. That would be amazing. That would be Panopticon, amazing. Bell Witch, Aerial Ruin on tour. I would be there for that. That sounds awesome. And also like Austin's from Minnesota. Well, so,
from Kentucky, I thought.
Well, he lives in Minnesota, right, is what I'm saying. At the moment, he would be from Minnesota. Okay. And so chances of them playing a Minneapolis show, pretty good. I feel like.
I feel like if those bands played, I don't know. I think you and I'd have to maybe make the trip.
Perhaps just a little bit.
Yeah.
And hey, throw some Falls of Rauros in there too.
Oh, hell yes.
And I'll be a happy camper. But I love that song. I really like No Hope, the last track.
Yeah. Very good.
That's very good. There's a vocal sample in there from a woman who is in a anarcho-punk band called Crass, and she's like a visual artist. I have to look up what her name was because I hadn't heard of her before. But she was like a big part of like the protest punk scene in like the 80s in the UK. I have to find her name just to credit her a little bit because there's a sample of her talking about something that she had done. Her name is Gee, or probably G Voucher.
How's it spelled?
Gee.
Oh.
So probably G.
G or yeah.
G Voucher. But she's as far as I know a British involved in the British punk scene.
Sure.
Which seems like something that of course Austin would know, where to find
of course.
A sample. But it was her talking essentially about a piece of art that she had made and how it was, dedicated to people who had struggled through certain things. I think, this album in general is sort of, I think Austin really wanted to impart a feeling of hope as much as he could, but it's hard the thing that I like that makes me like albums like this, that want to have a hopeful message, is I think to really make it punch, you have to drag yourself through the mud for a little while first. That's one of the things I like about Mirror Reaper is it maybe not everybody, and certainly the first time I listened to it, I didn't, but like at this point, you get to that last half hour and, the pummeling grief of the first half of it eventually, melts into something that feels really cathartic and feels vaguely hopeful.
It's like it's symmetrical. It's like they put in the bad part so they could give you the good part.
Yeah, you gotta have a little bit of both, and I think that's where some people bounce off of certain like metalcore bands that are always trying to impart that that message of hope or whatever. It's like you gotta have Bob Ross said, you gotta have a little bit of the light, a little bit of the dark. You gotta go through some bad times to know when you're going through the good times.
There are no mistakes.
There are only happy little accidents. Yeah. But yeah, this is I feel like this is kind of a metal Bob Ross painting.
Sure.
I feel like that's kind of, now that that's just something that popped into my head literally just now, but that's kind of just fits Panopticon. You look at the fucking cover art of every Panopticon album.
Sure.
It's always some sort of nature scape. It's, mountains or snow and trees. What the fuck was a Bob Ross painting?
Mountains, snows, trees.
Mountains, snow, trees. Like, I think this is, I really like that. I'm proud of myself for coming up with something that I enjoy. I like a thing that I've done for once in my life. But it's a metal Bob Ross painting.
Sure.
We talked about favorite songs. I also want to give Dead Loons a little bit of a shout out. That's a really good song.
That is a good song.
Also, by far, Moth Eaten Soul is like one of his most death metal songs.
Sure.
That he's ever written that I can think of anyway. That's a very, very death metal type of song. I mean, it's more atmospheric than something that you would get out of Cannibal Corpse or whatnot, but the vocals are much closer to death metal vocals than he typically goes, much growlier than usual. And the riffs, I think, are very death metal.
Eventually we should talk about Cannibal Corpse's new album.
We should probably do it. Just literally any Cannibal Corpse album.
You haven't done any Cannibal Corpse
We've
albums?
never done a Cannibal Corpse album.
I mean, they're an important metal band.
They're very important, but it's also just kind of like, why are we going out? Like, there are so many, like, especially in Death Metal December, for example, it's like there's so many other death metal bands we could be talking about.
Sure.
But then on the other hand, we also do a feature of death every year because it's death.
Yeah.
So we might at some point we ought to do some Cannibal Corpse. I think part of it is just like, what are we going to talk about? It's Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, it's death metal.
They're not doing anything like
groundbreaking or
they're the death metal version of AC/DC.
Sure.
They've made the same album how many goddamn times, but
I've listened to all of them and I like them.
It's good every time.
Yeah.
But it's nothing new. If someone asks you about the new Cannibal Corpse album, you're like, it's good.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
That's all you say. It's not like Napalm Death, for example. Their newest Napalm Death's newest album does some new shit for them. It's definitely new shit for them.
Techno electronica stuff they do.
Yeah, that's not but they incorporated like some kind of progressive stuff in there, and very high quality recording and stuff that was sort of new for Napalm Death. Cannibal Corpse doesn't really do new.
No.
I mean, their recording quality
and their fans don't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to a Cannibal Corpse show, you know what to expect. You're going to hear some of their newest songs. You're going to hear I Come Blood. Eventually, you're going to hear a hammer smashed face.
Entrails ripped from a virgin's cunt.
You're probably going to hear Meat Hook Sodomy at some point.
At some point, Ace Ventura is going to come out of the bathroom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was that. At that point, that was Chris Barnes, I'm pretty sure. So I think that when the fuck did Ace Ventura come out?
It was in the 90s. I mean,
it was like early 90s, I think.
When did George become the vocalist?
George became the vocalist in 95, I think. I think that's when George took over for Chris Barnes. And also, like, I forgot about this. On the first Suffocation album, Effigy of the Forgotten, George Fisher does a guest spot, but that was also in 1991 when he was still with Monstrosity, before he was Corpse Grinder.
Sure.
Before he was, George Fisher from Cannibal Corpse. He just knew the guys from Suffocation. And I don't know if Suffocation's even from Florida. But I mean, it was death metal wasn't a big community.
Cannibal Corpse was originally from upstate New York.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're from Buffalo.
Yeah,
most of them. And George is from Florida. George was the Florida connection, mostly.
Right. So I feel like Cannibal Corpse, because they're a Buffalo group, should do a tour with Every Time I Die. I think it would be.
I feel like Etid would be down for that.
But would Cannibal Corpse be down for that?
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
I would 100% go see that show.
George has done guest vocals on a Suicide Silence album. George is down
open
to hang out. He doesn't care. They're not. I don't think most of the guys in Cannibal Corpse are really snobby about who they tour with.
They're all in their 50s now. They've gotten over themselves.
They don't care about who they tour with. Generally speaking, as far as I'm aware, they're also too big to really have much say in who they tour with. Generally speaking, the record labels figure that shit out for them for the most part. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what medal are you bestowing upon this? Like Mas Kanata to Chewbacca?
I have to give it a high silver.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I give it a high silver. It's very good. I'm giving this a gold primarily because it passes my cry test. Okay, did it make you weep a little?
It did, just a little bit. I got to know Hope the first full time that I sat down and listened to it. And brought a tear to my eye.
All right,
brought a tear to that. Actually, no, I don't know if it was even No Hope that brought it. It was the Embers at Dawn that brought a tear to my eye. So it's for me. If something makes me cry, I gotta give it. I actually started having feelings during No Snow in Winter or whatever. A Snowless Winter. That's Winter, all the songs on here are really good. Yeah, they are really good. I mean, it's just that I can understand being held back by the production a little bit. Yeah, I would love a higher quality version of this, but it's not to be, and I'm accepting that and choosing to love this anyway. All right. That's how I'm going with this. But next week, what are you thinking? Next week, I've wanted to bring this album for a very long time, but there's never been a time I thought was appropriate. No time like the present. It's an album from 1988. Speaking of Austin, this band is from the city of Austin, Texas. They are. I mean, they were. I mean, tragedy struck them after their second album. And Bestruck. Yeah. Continue. Death. There was death in the band. But it's not the band Death. No, it's not the band Death. Okay. Chuck Schuldiner had nothing to do with the demise of this band. But it's a band called... Or did he? Maybe. A band called Drive. Now, I'd be hard pressed to find anybody who's heard of this band. I love their first album. Okay. Characters in Time. A lot of their songs. I mean, Characters in Time. It's borderline hair metal, but it's not. Okay. It's really progressive metal. Okay. And it's actually. Hey, brilliant. I love Dream Theater, so like that's why I thought I could bring this to. I like Dream Theater, so that's like if you like Dream Theater, you'll like this. I'm sure I will. Drive and Characters in Time. Characters in Time. Yeah, that sounds like a prog, it's totally prog rock. Yeah, rock album title. Yeah, 100%. All right, I'm ready. All right, I'm into it. So we'll get there next week. Between now and then, if you would visit our Twitter or Facebook pages, follow them or like them or whatever you want to do. Because we don't do anything with them. Yeah, maybe not whatever you want to do. Oh, yeah. But post nudes. No, don't post nudes. But yeah, do that. Don't encourage the one weirdo that's going to listen to this and actually do that. Check the Facebook. Damn it, Mrs. Border, come on. Oh, come. Fuck you. But that's against Facebook standards. If you are but Twitter doesn't give a shit. So no, they don't. If you're the type that wants to listen on your browser, you can find episode links there. Otherwise, find us on your iOS device via the podcast app and subscribe to our feed there, or subscribe to us on Libsyn, and you can find us on your mobile device via the Podcast Source app. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist podcast. I'm Kale. I'm OJ. Congratulations.